So I want to explain to you how you can secure a $100,000 a year job, right? Many people hear the six-figure salary thing. They want to earn that type of money. I've worked at Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and multiple other investment banks where those salaries are relatively common, as you can see here. And the person I'll be also reacting to is someone who's worked in hiring and recruiting within the tech industry. So you're going to get two different perspectives on how to earn those high earning salaries.
Applicant tracking system. Now, the purpose of this system is to store every person's application that has ever applied to a job, ever. Now, I know that sounds good in theory, but if you've ever gotten an email from a company or a call from a recruiter saying, thank you for your interest and we'll keep your information on file, don't get your hopes up. See, a lot of the times, those are templated emails to sugarcoat things to make you feel like you had a positive experience with that company's job application process. But the reality is, most of these applicant tracking systems have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of resumes from past applicants. And the chances of a recruiter backtracking to find a specific resume is slim to none.
So this is an important point, right? The applicant tracking system is, the internal careers website that you apply for when it comes to applying for jobs at a company. At the back end, they have the applicant tracking system. So this tends to filter out 2/3 of employees of applicants automatically, right? So 2/3 is quite high. Now, what you need to do to avoid that is to make sure you have certain key words on your CV that are relevant to the job role and relevant to that industry or department in general. So if you're applying for maybe a risk management role within finance, you're aware of the recent financial regulation and you include some of those buzzwords like Dodd-Frank Act, MiFID II, things like that. If you're applying for tech jobs, it'd be including certain coding languages and certain work you've done. All the keywords and buzzwords should help your CV stand out. So when they're searching for CVs through keywords, that's what you need to include. And then also just understand if you want to, and this is a bit of a trick, if you want to apply for multiple jobs at a company and maybe apply multiple times, maybe not the most ethical thing to do, but ways around it will be to apply through different email addresses, maybe slightly different names when you're completing it. That could maybe increase your chances. I know many people, when I was at LSE, London School of Economics, and I was applying for internships, many people would apply multiple times for internships with slightly different email addresses, slightly different CVs, to increase their chances of getting that internship and getting a job at a company. So just be aware of how the applicant tracking system is kind of heavily rigged. I wouldn't say rigged against you, but it's heavily, it has a major role in terms of whether you get the job or not. So it's something that you need to try to understand how it operates, right? Now, firstly, I want to go through this resume details here, right? There's many resume statistics that is worthwhile considering. I'm someone who managed to perfect my resume and help my clients perfect their resumes to get some of those top jobs at top banks and top finance firms and in other industries too. Firstly, it mentions the average resume length is 489 words, which is way too short. I think your resume should be a page to maybe a page and a half maximum, which would be more than 489. So I would say aim for 1 to 1.5 pages, depending on how much experience you have. Then it says the average time spent in a resume is 6 to 7 seconds. Now, 6 to 7 seconds, that is true. I would definitely worked on the trading floor of major investment banks where managing directors, the head of trading desk, things like that, would only quickly look through a CV. They're looking for certain key details, maybe certain keywords, certain levels of experience, how many years experience you have, are you familiar with trading specific products? So it's very kind of tight, and they don't really put too much care and effort into it. You might spend hours perfecting your resume, but the way it's reviewed is kind of heartless in a sense. They're only looking for certain details. Then it says around 63% of recruiters like to get resumes personalized to the job position. So if you are applying for jobs that you really want, maybe high profile jobs, maybe in the profile summary, these little tricks I can teach you through my career coaching service, the link's in the description. You'd have your profile summary at the top of your CV. You could really tailor make that to the jobs you're applying for, particularly if it's a job you want at a high profile company. It says that 88% of resumes are rejected because of the photo. So don't put a photo on your resume. That's a standard piece of advice. No one cares about the photo, and typically they just want to read your experience. Then it says 2 to 3% of resumes are resulting in an interview, and that's why you need to have scale your job applications, particularly if you're dealing with a layoff and you're desperately searching for a job. Apply for 10 to 20 jobs a day. If you are currently unemployed, at least go through LinkedIn, recruitment websites, recruiters you can contact. All of these type of things will really help you. Around 10% of job seekers have applied for 50 or more jobs without hearing back. So that's why I say you need to apply volume when it comes to your job applications, because you're going to get rejected from most of them, and you have to be emotionally detached from that. Just applying until something works out. And that's the best way of doing it. Then it says only 35% of candidates who apply for a job are qualified. So in a sense, you're not dealing with the best competition. So if you are qualified for your job and your job role, you're dealing with many people who are kind of not qualified, and essentially you're in a better position than a lot of them in many cases. More than 40% of recruiters say that applicants lack the necessary soft skills for the job. So this is something important that is difficult, I think, for a lot of people, particularly because people aren't socializing as much as they used to. They're spending time on the internet. And if you're in the office, you need to have good social skills. So if you want to consider doing a course, I can give some career advice on how to do that in developing your soft skills, dealing with difficult, senior management, difficult co-workers, navigating that type of office politics, petty, passive-aggressive environment in the office where it's more of a popularity contest than a productivity or profitability contest, because everything in the office is about social dynamics and not necessarily who does the best work. So it's important to just develop those soft skills, because it can really stand out in the interview if you're socially awkward, things like that. So let's continue to see what we can learn here.
Seconds, reviewing any singular resume. And in most cases, we're not even reading your resume. We're really only looking for one or two keywords that makes us think that you're qualified to do the job. So if your resume is not written well, it's almost a guarantee that the recruiter is going to reject your application as soon as they look at it. Now, I have plenty of examples of what.
Now, a key point here is that when recruiters are reviewing job applications, reviewing CVs and resumes, they don't know all the technical details that the hiring manager is right? So if they're looking for a finance job, maybe the trading desk manager will tell HR and the recruitment team, oh, he needs to be able to trade foreign exchange products, he needs to be able to trade interest rate products, derivatives, things like that. But the recruiter himself, the HR guy, he doesn't know all the technical details. So he's just going to look for keywords. So you should really think your CV and what keywords you're including about the technical skills on the role, because all the HR recruiter guy will know is to look for those keywords. He won't know exactly what you've done. So just include as many buzzwords as possible.
Is networking through your personal and professional connections. Now that might seem obvious, but I've talked to tons of job seekers who struggle to find work that are neglecting to take advantage of people in their circle. But what a lot of people don't realize is that networking can come in many different forms. Let's say that your uncle used to work with someone who's friends with the director of an e-commerce company that just announced a hiring ramp. Or you just call a couple of your friends and let them know you're looking for a new job, and one of their companies just opened up a few positions last.
So networking is kind of important, right? And I know I mentioned how difficult co-workers or managers can be, and that sucking up in the office is kind of important if you want to progress your career. But what ends up happening, and this is really a price you have to pay if you want to survive long term in the finance industry and those high paying jobs, is to have your social life revolve around your work life, which I don't recommend, because nowadays there's so many opinions you can have that you can get you cancelled if you're spending time with a co-worker outside of work, maybe having drinks after work, and you mention an opinion you have that isn't politically correct. They might tell other co-workers and then bring it up in the office to make you look bad or look right-wing or politically incorrect, or that you hate this, hate that, whatever. You discuss some details about your personal life, colleagues will gossip about it, you have certain positive things happen in your life, people can get jealous. But unfortunately, the way that the finance industry works, I wouldn't say it's an old boys club, but it is like a popularity contest, the same way it's a bit like high school or being on the playground or being at high school, right? In the sense that, you need to be in the right social circle, you need to have similar lifestyle choices. I know I would have co-workers at some of those major investment banks I've worked at, where they would all go to yoga classes together, male and female. They'd all have the same political opinions that say Brexit is bad or that Trump is bad, things like that. They'd all go to the same bars. They'd be renting their apartments in the same area, like Hemel Hempstead, which is kind of a bit more of an expensive part of London. They'd be in the same social circles, have the same like taste in music and culture and things like that. And if you're outside of that, they're going to see you as a bit lower class and things like that. They're going to see down on you if you're not wearing certain clothing brands they're wearing, things like that. So even though I prefer to separate my social life from work, Going to after work drinks and being extra friendly with coworkers and getting invited to their weddings and their social events is kind of important, and it's really an indicator of whether they want to hire you and promote you and be around you. Now, I decided personally that's not for me, and I'm pursuing other goals in life, but if you want to climb that type of corporate ladder, networking is important, because when they have a new team set up, even if it's, again, as I mentioned in some of my videos, a lot of these jobs are completely made up, completely busy work, that might be well paid, but you might not be doing much or developing much skills. They will always consider you as a friend that they'll put forward for the job, and you'll probably be in a much better position to get that job compared to others, right? And you need to be able to parrot other people's opinions, right? On whether it is shows, football, whatever their likes and dislikes are. That will do more for your security and your job search more than anything else. Developing a network where you're kind of camouflaging yourself, being a bit of a social chameleon to fit in with the people, and making sure that they see you as an ally rather than an adversary or an opponent or someone who's too different from their sensibilities. And that will help you more in getting a job than many job applications will. So it's a crazy kind of biased world we live in.
KBR stands for Kellogg, Brown, and Root. But the running joke was that KBR stood for kinfolk, brothers, and relatives, because that's literally all that they hired. And as funny as that is, there's a ring of truth to it, and it all revolves around networking through your personal and professional connections to land a job. And I've seen a lot of people hired, and in a lot of cases, they're not even the most qualified for the position. And that's the power of networking. Now, if you want to start growing your network,
so this is an important point here, right? So he mentioned working for a company called KBR, and it's named Kellogg's something or the other. But kinfolk, brothers, and relatives, that's who get the preferred treatment, right? So I noticed so many average people who went to no-name universities, living in a no-name part of the UK, they were just friends with the manager, and they managed to get quite high-paying, stable jobs. And not only did they get the high-paying jobs, because they're friends with the manager and they suck up to the manager a lot, they essentially are kind of got a guaranteed job for life, because as long as that manager's in place, they'll be there. They're not going to be put up for job cuts and layoffs, because they're just one of the manager's favorites. And that's just how it works. I know someone, for example, who was laid off from one major bank, Barclays, and they were basically unemployed, and they're in their late 30s, and they just couldn't get a job, essentially, that would pay well. They were depending on their wives to kind of pay for the living costs. This is kind of a difficult situation for his marriage and for his life, dealing with a layoff after leaving Barclays, right? His job as a middle-aged man was doing quite simple, basic things that an assistant would do, an administrative assistant would do, like someone in their early 20s, like a receptionist would do. His job on our team, and he was getting upwards of 150 upwards, that's what I would say. Given the work he was doing didn't have any impact. He would be doing things like just talking to team members, gathering some information, writing some very basic reports. He didn't really engage in conversations with any other people. He didn't really have the technical knowledge for the job. But because he lived in quite an affluent area of South London, he became friends with the manager. Just being in the same place, they would go to a gym together. He basically got the job. And it's kind of crazy because he didn't know some basic things. There's some basic terminology within finance industry about conflicts of interest, insider dealing, certain things he didn't know the basics of. Formatting emails, he didn't know how to format emails correctly and put attachments in the body of the email versus attached to the email. It was kind of basic things he didn't know, right? In many cases, people are not qualified, but they get the job based on who they know, not what they know, right? And ways you can help your situation if you're not the type of person, like you're like me, you kind of separate your work life and your social life. You can use LinkedIn to network professionally and keep your social life and personal life separate. You can go to meetup groups. Meetup.com is like an option to like meet people who are job hunting and having other interests. And it might be an interest in, say, crypto, things like that. So that's where you might be able to find job opportunities or freelance work. And then there's also some Facebook groups where there are around people who are job hunting and things like that. So there's many different options to consider. It's not necessarily a one-trick pony thing. So now I want to consider another option that has worked quite well for me, and it might work well for you, is recruitment agencies. They'll put your CV forward for top roles, and typically they know about these top job roles before they do become advertised to the broader market, so it puts you ahead in terms of getting a job there. Let's listen to this clip about recruitment agencies.
Before, really how it works is they're a middleman that helps a company fill their positions. A lot of the times, if a company is struggling to hire someone with a certain background, whether it be in healthcare, finance, technology, they'll reach out to these recruiting agencies to help them hire. The reason why this is a good way to expand your network is that recruiting agencies only get paid once they fill that company's positions. So they are incentivized to help you be successful in every step of the way. So generally they can give you insight about the interview process and prepare you for what to expect.
So recruitment agencies are great, as I mentioned. There's certain recruitment agencies who are aware of job opportunities before they become available. They have exclusive access to specific companies like hedge funds that are looking to hire. Certain hedge funds, certain major investment banks, they only work with certain recruitment firms. And again, I can provide advice through my career coaching service if you're interested. And if you put your CV with them, then I'll give you a much more likelihood of getting top jobs that no one else has access to effectively. Because some of these small hedge funds and private equity firms, they don't want to advertise their jobs to everyone and anyone. They just want specific recruiters to find them the best person for the job. Yes, there's a few instances of that. Now, other things I just want to mention here is be careful about doing certain things to get a high-paying six-figure job. You don't want to be in a position where you're doing expensive certifications, professional certifications, expensive like coding boot camps and things like that, because these might not pay off. They might sell you this dream like you've got a guaranteed job at the end of this, you're going to be making this much money. In this economy particularly, that might not pay off. So think carefully before you dedicate lots of time, money and energy to specific professional qualifications if they're not got a direct payoff, or you can't really see yourself doing that job long term. And the certification has to be profit driven and have an impact on your salary, meaning that if you do a certification, we all have different interests, but really think you're working a job to earn money. So no point doing something that just interests you. I know people who completed the MBA. I'm sure you've heard of the MBA. It's quite a professional business qualification, and it doesn't really benefit them. They're not really getting senior job roles. It's more of a social status thing. So many people do the MBA and they say they do it for networking, to learn a bit of the basics about things, and they don't really move forward in their life, and they spend a lot of money. They might have spent 2 years or so outside of the job market when they could be making a lot of money just to learn this MBA that doesn't really help boost their salary, and they end up being just stuck in middle management forever. So be careful about being caught up in these type of gimmick things like a coding bootcamp or an MBA unless you see a direct benefit to your career growth. And that's very important to really consider. So thanks for listening. If you want to speak with me directly, you can reach out to me at the career advice link in the description, and I'm happy to help you and give you some tailor-made advice. There are 2 recommended videos on the screen right now, and I'll see you next time.